Hi, second graders. It's Mrs. Doherty here, and I want to play a math game with you that you'll be doing this week. So the game is called Roll a Rectangular Array, and you'll find these directions online on the grid. Some of the materials that you're going to need are dice and colored tiles. Now, if you have some dice at home, that's great. You might have a game or a board game at home that you could borrow the dice from. And if you don't have any dice, then you can always use a deck of cards. You could always use just a deck of cards. I've taken out the kings, the queens, and the jacks, but if you want to get creative and use these as different numbers, go ahead and do that. So you could use a deck of cards, you could use dice, or you could just take some scrap paper or some cardboard and make your own number cards and use that. So I have these dice that are editable, so I've just taped on some numbers, so I'll use that for our game. The other thing you're going to need are colored tiles. Now, when we left school, I didn't bring any colored tiles home, and I'm imagining you didn't either. But that's okay. Be creative. Use stuff that you have at home. So one thing I had that reminded me of colored tiles were Czech cereal. So I could use that. I could use Czech cereal, or I've also taken a cereal box and I've just cut it up to make tiles. Nothing fancy, just what I had at home. For this game, for this video, because I'm doing it up here on the wall because we're not at school, I just have a metal cover and I'm going to use some magnets that I have in order to show you. So use what you have at home and let's get started. So your first direction, I'll read it to you, is roll 2 dice or flip 2 cards. The first number tells how many rows of colored tiles to build in a rectangular array. How many rows? Rows go side to side. The second number rolled tells how many colored tiles to put in each column. Columns go up and down. Now I've got this little reminder here. I know in my class we've talked about rows. All the letters are small. So I've got that line on the top and the bottom to show you it's going left to right, and they're all the same size. And that reminds you, hopefully, oh boy, sorry about that. That reminds you that rows are going side to side or horizontally. Then you'll see the word columns here. And column, I've really exaggerated that L to remind you that columns go up and down. So you can use that as a resource. Step 2, draw and describe the rectangle array. Step 3, write an equation to express the total number of colored tiles as a sum of equal addends. And I'll go over that with you, but on the directions page there's an example. And then step 4, continue to build, draw, and describe rectangle arrays. So on my teaching space here, I'm going to tape up the directions so I have it as a reference. Okay. With my giant dice, I'm going to roll. I've got a 2, I've got a 2, and I've got a 4. Sorry. I've got a 2 and I've got a 4. So my 2 was my rows and my 4 is my columns. So using my board, I'm going to remind myself, okay, I know rows go side to side and columns go up and down. So I'm going to take my tiles, or my magnets in this case, and I'm going to put them here. I know that I have 2 rows, so this could be the start of 1 row, and I need a second row. 1 row, 2 row. Now I have my other number that I rolled was that 4. So I'm going to put 4 columns. 4 columns. 1 column. Now I need, this is a second column. 1 column, 2 column. This is the start of a 3rd column. And a 4th column. So I have 2 rows, 4 columns. And there's my rectangular array. Now, you'll be working on a piece of paper, but I'm working on this big giant paper here so that you can see what I'm doing. So our job is to write how many rows and columns it has, as well as write an addition problem that matches it. So I rolled that 2 and that 4. I also want to draw my rectangular array. So I'm going to make a rectangle. And if I look at this, I see it's kind of like a long, kind of thin rectangle. So it doesn't have to be perfect. So I've got the shape of a rectangle. Now I need to make it 2 rows. So if I cut this in half, I have 1 row, 2 row. Now I need to make 3 columns. I'm sorry, 4 columns. But there's a trick. If you make 3 lines, or 1 less line for the number of columns you need, that will give you the right amount of columns. So I know I need 4 columns, so I'm going to make 3 lines. 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, and 4 column. So now I've got my rectangular array drawn up here. Now let's describe. So I've got 2 rows, so I'll write it here. 2 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, and columns has that silent N in there, which makes it really tricky to spell. Now I want to use some repeated addition to make an equation that matches the rectangle. So I can do 4 plus 4. Oh, that makes me think of a double. I know my doubles pretty well, so 4 plus 4 equals 8. I'm going to put that in there. 4 plus 4 equals 8. Or I could do my equation going this way. There's 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 8. I know my numbers haven't changed. I haven't added any tiles or taken any away. So these equations both have the same representation. I could either think about it as 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 8, or 4 plus 4 equals 8. Then you're going to want, that would be 1 round of the game. So then you're going to want to go and roll the dice again, or pick 2 new cards, build it however you can. I'm using the magnetic tiles, but you could use Czech cereal or any cereal, or make your own cards, just cutting up some scrap paper or cardboard, and then jotting it down. I hope you have fun playing.